My name is Amanda Walker. I am 32 years old, and I never thought I would be the type of person to record a video predicting my own sister would ruin my celebration dinner. But after years of Bridget's chronic pain mysteriously flaring up during my milestone moments, I took my best friend Sarah's advice and created some insurance footage. As I sat in my car outside that upscale steakhouse, I had no idea I would actually need to use it just 30 minutes later. If you have ever had a family member steal your spotlight during your big moment, let me know in the comments where you are watching from, and do not forget to subscribe to see how I finally exposed a painful family pattern that had been going on for years. My journey to becoming a senior marketing director was not an overnight success story. For 5 years straight, I poured my heart and soul into my career, regularly pulling 70-plus-hour work weeks. While my friends were enjoying weekend brunches and vacations, I was hunched over my laptop refining campaign strategies and analyzing market data. My apartment became less of a home and more of a pit stop between office shifts. Takeout containers filled my refrigerator, and my bed often remained unmade for days. This promotion was not just a title change, it represented validation for every sacrifice I had made. The complicated relationship with my sister Bridget began long before her chronic pain diagnosis. Being 3 years older, Bridget had always been the star of our family. Growing up in our suburban Pennsylvania home, she excelled at everything she touched. Our parents, Richard and Eleanor, never missed an opportunity to brag about her perfect grades, violin recitals, and later her acceptance to an Ivy League university. Family gatherings inevitably turned into the Bridget Show, with relatives asking about her accomplishments while I stood quietly in the background. I still remember my 10th birthday party when Bridget, then 13, performed an impromptu piano piece that had all our relatives clapping and cooing. My carefully rehearsed thank you speech became a forgotten footnote. This pattern continued throughout our childhood and teenage years. Even when I achieved something noteworthy like winning the state debate championship in high school, conversations quickly pivoted back to Bridget. The dynamic shifted somewhat 7 years ago when Bridget was involved in a car accident. She sustained no major injuries, but the trauma triggered fibromyalgia, a chronic condition causing widespread pain and fatigue. Almost overnight, our parents became even more attentive to her needs. Family resources, emotional energy, and conversations all centered around Bridget's health journey. I tried to be supportive. I truly did. I researched fibromyalgia, accompanied her to doctor appointments when our parents could not, and listened to her describe the invisible pain that others could not see. But as months turned into years, I noticed a disturbing pattern. Bridget's pain seemed to intensify whenever I had something significant to celebrate. The first incident occurred during my college graduation. The night before the ceremony, Bridget was rushed to the emergency room with what she described as unbearable full-body pain. My parents immediately left our pre-graduation dinner to be at her bedside. I walked across the stage the next day, with only my roommate cheering me on, while my family remained at the hospital. When I visited Bridget afterward, her pain had mysteriously subsided enough for her to be scrolling through social media. Then came my engagement party 3 years ago. My now ex-fiancé Jake had planned an intimate gathering at our favorite restaurant. Just as he stood to propose a toast, Bridget fainted dramatically, sending glasses crashing and drawing every eye in the room. The evening transformed from a celebration of our relationship to a concerned vigil around Bridget. The engagement ended 6 months later, with Jake citing my complicated family dynamics as one of the reasons. My wedding day the following year to a different man named Daniel featured Bridget requiring a wheelchair at the last minute, despite having walked perfectly fine during the rehearsal dinner the night before. She needed to be positioned at the front of the ceremony, where her occasional moans of pain competed with our vows. That marriage lasted less than 2 years. After each incident, I tried convincing myself it was coincidental. Chronic pain is unpredictable, I reasoned. Stress can trigger flare-ups, and family events are stressful. But deep down, a voice whispered that something was not right. This voice grew louder with each occurrence until it became impossible to ignore. When I received news of my promotion last week, my first instinct was to celebrate privately. Maybe a quiet dinner with just Daniel, though we were now divorced but remained friends. But another part of me refused to hide my achievement. Why should I diminish my success because of past patterns? I deserved a proper celebration. So I reserved a private room at Morton's Steakhouse, one of the most expensive restaurants in our city. I invited my parents Bridget, my cousin Heather, who was visiting from Chicago, and my best friend Sarah. Sarah had witnessed the pattern over the years and understood my apprehension about including Bridget. "You need to document this," Sarah insisted during our phone call the day before the dinner. "Record yourself predicting what will happen. It might seem paranoid, but if the pattern repeats, you will have evidence." At first I dismissed the idea as petty. What kind of person makes a video anticipating their sister will ruin their celebration? But as the dinner approached, anxiety tightened my chest. 5 years of hard work deserved recognition. If history repeated itself, I wanted proof that I was not imagining things. So there I sat in my car outside Morton's 30 minutes before our reservation, speaking into my phone camera. "I am about to go inside for my promotion celebration dinner," I said, feeling ridiculous yet determined. "Based on past experience, I predict that Bridget will have a pain episode right as I announce my news. She will collapse or require immediate attention. My parents will rush to her side, and once again my moment will be overshadowed." I detailed specific behaviors I expected to see, from the timing to the exact reactions. Then I saved the video, tucked my phone into my purse, and walked into the restaurant, hoping I would never need to use the recording. Morton's Steakhouse exuded luxury from every corner. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over mahogany tables, and the air carried the rich aroma of aged beef and expensive wine. I had reserved the boardroom, a private dining space separated from the main restaurant by heavy velvet curtains. A long table dominated the center set, with gleaming silverware and crystal glasses that caught the light. The privacy would allow us to converse freely, without the hushed constraints of the main dining room. More importantly, it would contain any family drama within its wood-paneled walls. I arrived 20 minutes early to ensure everything was perfect. The manager greeted me by name, congratulating me on my promotion after I mentioned the occasion. He personally guided me to the boardroom, where a bottle of champagne already chilled in an ice bucket compliments of the house. A small congratulations card propped against the bucket made me smile. At least someone acknowledged my achievement without conditions. My parents arrived first, exactly at 7 o'clock. My father, Richard, ever punctual, wore his standard dinner attire, a navy blazer over a button-down shirt. My mother, Eleanor, followed behind him, elegant in a floral dress I recognized from numerous family functions. They embraced me with genuine affection, though my father's first words made my smile falter. "The restaurant looks wonderful, Amanda. Did you check if they can accommodate Bridget's dietary restrictions? You know she cannot have gluten or dairy with her condition." No congratulations or questions about my new position. Just immediate concern for Bridget, who had not even arrived yet. I swallowed my disappointment and assured him that yes, I had confirmed multiple menu options for Bridget when making the reservation. "That was thoughtful, dear," my mother said, patting my arm. "Bridget texted that she is running a few minutes late. She had to rest before coming out tonight." I nodded, unsurprised. Bridget was chronically late to everything, a habit that predated her fibromyalgia diagnosis, but now came with a medical excuse. My parents never commented on her tardiness, though they had lectured me endlessly as a teenager if I missed curfew by even 5 minutes. Sarah arrived next, bringing warmth and solidarity with her entrance. Her bright smile and tight hug communicated what words could not in front of my parents. She was here for me, whatever happened. She looked stunning in a red dress that complemented her dark skin, and her confidence filled the room. "You look amazing," she whispered as we embraced. "And remember the video." I squeezed her hand in silent acknowledgement as we all took our seats. My cousin Heather arrived moments later, apologizing for being a few minutes late. She had flown in from Chicago specifically for this dinner, a gesture that touched me deeply. Unlike my immediate family, Heather had always shown genuine interest in my life and career. 15 minutes after our reservation time, Bridget made her entrance. She moved slowly, one hand pressed against her lower back, her face arranged in an expression of discomfort that I had seen countless times before. Despite her apparent pain, she looked immaculate in an expensive blue dress, her hair and makeup flawlessly done. For someone who supposedly struggled to perform basic tasks due to pain, she always managed to look perfectly put together for public appearances. "Sorry I am late," she announced, her voice carrying a faint tremor. "Bad pain day." My parents immediately jumped up, my father pulling out her chair, and my mother asking if she needed anything. Bridget eased herself into the seat across from me, declining the offered water, but accepting a cushion for her back that my mother miraculously produced from her large purse. "Amanda was just about to tell us about her new position," Sarah prompted, once everyone had settled. I shot her a grateful look. "Yes, please tell us the details," Heather added enthusiastically. "A senior marketing director at 32 is incredibly impressive." Bridget smiled tightly, taking a small sip of water. "Yes, we are all very curious." The server arrived to take our drink orders, temporarily halting the conversation. My father ordered an expensive bottle of red wine to celebrate Amanda's achievement, which momentarily warmed my heart. Perhaps the evening would proceed normally after all. As appetizers arrived, conversation flowed surprisingly smoothly. We reminisced about childhood summers at our grandparents' lake house, laughing about the time I fell off the dock fully clothed because Bridget had dared me to stand too close to the edge. Even Bridget joined in, seemingly relaxed and pain-free, as she recounted family stories. But I noticed her expression shift subtly whenever the topic veered toward my promotion, a slight tightening around her eyes, a forced quality to her smile. When my father asked about my new responsibilities, Bridget shifted in her seat, her hand moving to her temple. "Would you mind if we lowered the lights a bit?" she asked, interrupting my explanation of the international campaigns I would be overseeing. "The brightness is triggering my migraine." My mother immediately signaled the server, who adjusted the dimmer. The lighting changed from warm and celebratory to subdued and somber, altering the mood of our gathering. I continued my explanation, but the momentum had been broken. As the main course arrived, Bridget began mentioning her pain more frequently. A wince while cutting her steak, a soft sigh while reaching for her water glass. Each small indication of discomfort drew my parents' attention like a magnet. "Are you taking your medication regularly?" my mother asked, her forehead creased with worry. "Do you need to stretch your legs?" my father suggested. "We can take a short walk around the restaurant." "Is the chair comfortable enough? Should we ask for additional cushions?" With each concerned question, my achievement receded further into the background. Sarah caught my eye across the table, her expression confirming what I already knew. The pattern was beginning again, right on schedule. As our dinner progressed through the main course, I made several attempts to redirect the conversation back to my promotion. Each time Bridget would interject with a comment about her condition, effectively derailing the discussion. When I described how I would be managing a team of 15 people, she mentioned that her doctor was adjusting her medication dosage. When I talked about the company's expansion into Asian markets, which I would be spearheading, she pulled out her prescription bottle and made a show of taking her pills with water. "Sorry," she murmured, drawing all eyes to her. "The pain is particularly bad tonight. But please continue, Amanda. We are all so interested in your work." Her words said one thing, but her actions communicated something entirely different. My parents barely seemed to register what I was saying about my career advancement, their attention fixed on Bridget's every movement and expression. My father kept asking if she had eaten enough, while my mother continuously offered various remedies from her purse, a virtual pharmacy of pain relievers and comfort items. Sarah, sensing my growing frustration, tried creating openings for me to share my news properly. "Amanda actually beat out candidates from across the country for this position," she stated loudly. During a brief lull in Bridget's health updates, the CEO personally called to congratulate her. "That is wonderful, dear. my mother said distractedly, while simultaneously passing Bridget a heat pack for her neck. The scene triggered memories of countless previous occasions when Bridget's health had overshadowed my life events. My college graduation should have been a triumphant moment. After 4 years of balancing full-time studies with part-time jobs, I had graduated with honors in marketing and communications. My name had been called, and I had walked across that stage, with pride swelling in my chest, only to look out at the audience and see empty seats where my family should have been. The night before, we had gathered for a pre-graduation dinner at an Italian restaurant near campus. I remember my father raising his glass in a toast to Amanda, who has worked so hard for tomorrow's ceremony. Just as glasses clinked, Bridget had gasped, clutching her side. "I cannot breathe," she had whispered dramatically. Within minutes, dinner was abandoned, and my parents were rushing her to the emergency room, leaving me alone at the table with untouched celebratory desserts. The next morning, when I called the hospital to check on her, my mother explained they would be staying with Bridget through the day. "She is stable, but in tremendous pain. You understand, right? We will watch the video of your graduation later." I had walked across that stage with only my roommate cheering. When I visited the hospital afterward, still wearing my cap and gown, I found Bridget looking remarkably comfortable, scrolling through Instagram on her phone. She barely glanced up when I entered, offering a casual congrats before returning to her social media browsing. The pain that had been unbearable hours earlier seemed magically manageable enough for her to engage in her usual online activities. Then there was my engagement party to Jake 3 years ago. After dating for 2 years, he had proposed with a vintage ring that had belonged to his grandmother. We planned an intimate celebration at Bella Luna, reserving their garden patio and inviting only close friends and family. Jake had spent weeks organizing the perfect evening, from the menu to the flowers to the playlist of our favorite songs. The evening had begun beautifully. Under string lights and a canopy of stars, we had shared a meal with our loved ones. Jake stood to make a toast, champagne glass in hand, his voice filled with emotion as he described how we had met and fallen in love. Just as he said, "I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life with Amanda," there was a crash from across the table. Bridget had slumped forward, her glass shattering on the ground, her body limp. The romantic evening dissolved into chaos. Paramedics were called. Guests stood awkwardly as my parents knelt beside Bridget, who regained consciousness conveniently just as medical help arrived. She refused transport to the hospital, but required extensive attention for the remainder of the evening. Jake's heartfelt toast was never completed, and most guests left early, expressing concern for Bridget rather than congratulations for our engagement. 6 months later, Jake ended our relationship. "I love you, Amanda," he had said gently, "but I cannot spend my life competing with your sister's health crises. Every significant moment we try to share gets hijacked. I do not think your family dynamics will ever change, and I am not strong enough to deal with that forever." I had been devastated, but unable to argue with his assessment. He was right. Nothing in my life was ever allowed to take precedence over Bridget's needs, real or exaggerated. My wedding to Daniel the following year provided perhaps the most obvious example of Bridget's pattern. Throughout the entire engagement and planning process, she had been relatively symptom-free. She had attended dress fittings, cake tastings, and venue visits without any major issues. At the rehearsal dinner, she had moved around the restaurant, normally even dancing briefly to the music playing in the background. Yet, on the morning of my wedding day, she had called my hotel room in tears. "I cannot walk, Amanda. The pain is excruciating. I need a wheelchair to be in the ceremony." The next several hours involved my parents scrambling to rent a wheelchair and rearranging the ceremony seating to accommodate it. Bridget insisted she needed to be in the front row, directly in my line of sight as I spoke my vows. Throughout the ceremony, she made small but audible sounds of discomfort, drawing concerned glances from guests and even the officiant. During our first dance, I caught her grimacing dramatically whenever she thought someone was watching. That marriage had lasted less than 2 years. Daniel never explicitly blamed Bridget, but her constant intrusions into our life together created an undeniable strain. Every holiday, every anniversary, every milestone became an exercise in anxiety, both of us wondering when the next health crisis would erupt. As these memories flooded back, I excused myself from the table, needing a moment alone. In the elegant bathroom of Morton's, I gripped the marble countertop and stared at my reflection in the mirror. Was I being insensitive? Fibromyalgia was a real condition with unpredictable flare-ups. Maybe it was just horrible luck that Bridget's pain coincided with my important moments. But the statistician in me, the data analyst who had built a career on recognizing patterns, knew better. The correlation was too perfect to be coincidence. My rational mind could not ignore the evidence before me. I pulled out my phone and watched the video I had recorded in the car. Bridget will start mentioning her pain more as dinner progresses, I had predicted. She will time her biggest episode for the moment I formally announce my promotion. Mom and Dad will immediately forget about my news and focus entirely on her. Watching myself outline the very scenario that was currently unfolding made something shift inside me. I was not imagining this pattern. I was not being selfish or unsympathetic. I was recognizing a truth that had shaped our family dynamic for years. I returned to the table with a new sense of resolution. Sarah gave me a questioning look, and I nodded slightly. Whatever happened next, I would not let my moment be stolen again. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much to have my achievement dismissed. I would like to make my announcement properly, now, I said, reaching for my water glass. My voice carried a firmness that surprised even me. Before we move on to dessert. I stood up, smoothing the front of my black dress as everyone's attention turned to me. The private dining room suddenly felt smaller, more intimate, as if the walls themselves were leaning in to hear what I had to say. Sarah gave me an encouraging smile, while my cousin Heather set down her fork in anticipation. My parents looked attentive, but distracted, their eyes darting occasionally toward Bridget, who shifted slightly in her chair. First, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I began, my voice steadier than I expected. Having my family and closest friends here means everything to me. As most of you know, I have been with Marshall Media for 5 years now. I paused, taking a sip of water to calm my nerves. This was my moment, the culmination of countless late nights, working weekends, and sacrificed personal time. I had rehearsed this speech in my mind for days, imagining the supportive reactions, the congratulatory hugs, the proud smiles. The past few years have been challenging in the marketing industry, with digital transformation changing everything about how we connect with consumers. I have poured myself into staying ahead of these changes, developing strategies that position our clients at the forefront of their industries. My father nodded approvingly, and for a moment, I glimpsed the pride I had been seeking for so long. My mother reached for my father's hand, squeezing it gently. Even Bridget appeared to be listening, though her fingers massaged her temple in small circular motions. Last week, after presenting a comprehensive international expansion plan to the executive board, I received some news that I am thrilled to share with you all tonight. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight and significance of the words I was about to speak. I have been promoted to Senior Marketing Director, overseeing all North American and Asian market operations. As the last word left my lips exactly as I had predicted in my car video, Bridget gasped loudly. Her body seemed to crumple, folding in on itself, as she slid partway out of her chair. Her water glass toppled, sending liquid spreading across the white tablecloth toward my mother's plate. "Oh my God," my mother exclaimed, immediately jumping to her feet. "Bridget, what is wrong?" My father was already out of his chair, rushing to Bridget's side of the table. He knelt beside her, one hand on her back, the other grasping her wrist as if checking her pulse. "Are you okay? Can you breathe? Should we call an ambulance?" Bridget's eyes fluttered dramatically as she slumped against our father's supporting arm. "Just pain," she managed to whisper, her voice faint, yet somehow carrying perfectly to every corner of the room. "Severe flare-up," came on suddenly. The restaurant's manager appeared at the doorway, drawn by the commotion. "Is everything all right? Should I call for medical assistance?" "No," Bridget murmured weakly, though loud enough for everyone to hear. No ambulance. I just need to go home. I am so sorry, Amanda. Your promotion? Her voice trailed off as if completing the sentence required too much energy. My mother was already gathering Bridget's purse and jacket. Richard, bring the car around. We need to get her home, where she can take her stronger medication. My father nodded, standing up and turning to me with an apologetic expression. Amanda, I am so sorry. We will continue this celebration another time. Your promotion is wonderful news, truly. But right now, Bridget needs you, I finished flatly. Of course she does. Sarah caught my eye from across the table, her expression a mixture of disbelief and outrage on my behalf. Heather looked uncomfortable, trapped in a family dynamic she was not fully part of, but could clearly recognize as dysfunctional. In that moment, a strange calm settled over me. The scene playing out before me was so precisely what I had predicted that it felt almost scripted. I could see each move before it happened, each concerned question, each apologetic glance in my direction, quickly followed by renewed attention to Bridget. Without fully forming a conscious decision, I reached for my phone. My fingers moved automatically, opening my photo gallery and selecting the video I had recorded just 30 minutes earlier. I turned the volume up to maximum. Everyone, before you leave, there is something I think you should see. My voice cut through the commotion. Something in my tone, perhaps the unusual blend of resignation and determination, caused everyone to pause. Even Bridget, still slumped dramatically against my father, turned her head slightly toward me. I placed my phone in the center of the table and pressed play. My own face appeared on the screen, sitting in my car outside the restaurant. I am about to go inside for my promotion celebration dinner, my recorded self said clearly. Based on past experience, I predict that Bridget will have a pain episode, right as I announce my news. She will collapse, or require immediate attention. My parents will rush to her side, and once again my moment will be overshadowed. The room went completely silent. My recorded voice continued detailing with uncomfortable accuracy the exact scenario that had just unfolded down to the knocked-over water glass and my parents' immediate shift of attention. She will not require an ambulance, but will need to be taken home immediately. My parents will apologize and promise to celebrate properly, another time, a time that will never actually materialize. As the video ended, 5 pairs of eyes stared at me in stunned silence. Bridget, whose body had been practically limp moments before now, sat rigidly upright, her face drained of color. The pain that had seemed so debilitating appeared miraculously manageable as shock took precedence. My parents looked between Bridget and me, confusion giving way to uncomfortable realization. Sarah remained perfectly still, her expression neutral, but her eyes communicating silent support. Heather studied her water glass intently, clearly wishing she were anywhere else. Amanda. My mother finally broke the silence, her voice uncertain. What exactly are you suggesting? I met her gaze directly. I am not suggesting anything, Mom. I am simply pointing out a pattern that has repeated itself throughout my adult life. Every significant achievement or celebration I have is interrupted by Bridget's health crises, which mysteriously resolve themselves once the attention has successfully shifted away from me. Bridget's face transformed from shock to outrage. Are you seriously accusing me of faking my chronic illness? Do you have any idea how painful fibromyalgia is? How dare you make my suffering about you? I am not saying your condition is not real, I replied calmly. I am saying the timing of your worst episodes is suspiciously consistent. This is absurd. Bridget pushed herself fully upright, the frailty of moments ago replaced by indignant energy. Mom, Dad, are you going to let her talk to me like this? After everything I have been through? My father looked utterly lost, his gaze bouncing between his daughters like a tennis ball. He had always been the family peacekeeper, smoothing over conflicts with well-intentioned but ultimately ineffective compromises. This situation, however, was beyond his ability to placate with soothing words or small concessions. Amanda, he began cautiously. I understand you might feel overshadowed sometimes, but accusing your sister of manipulating her condition, that is a serious charge. It is not just sometimes, Dad, I replied, maintaining my composure despite the tension crackling in the air. It is every single important moment in my life. College graduation, engagement party, wedding day, and now my career milestone. The pattern is undeniable. Sarah cleared her throat, drawing everyone's attention. Despite not being family by blood, she had witnessed our dynamic for over a decade. If I may, she said respectfully, but firmly, I have observed this pattern too. It is not just Amanda's perception. Of course you would take her side, Bridget snapped, color returning to her previously pale face. You have always been against me. That is not true, Sarah responded evenly. I have driven you to doctor appointments when your family could not. I have researched treatments and sent you articles about managing fibromyalgia. I have never questioned the reality of your condition, but I cannot ignore what I have seen repeatedly over the years. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. Bridget has been diagnosed by multiple specialists, she said defensively. You cannot fake the kind of pain she experiences. Pain is real, but also influenced by psychological factors, I pointed out, and timing can be controlled. I am not saying Bridget does not have fibromyalgia. I am saying she has learned to use it consciously or unconsciously to maintain her position as the center of family attention. Bridget pushed her chair back forcefully, the legs scraping against the hardwood floor. This is ridiculous. I came here tonight despite being in pain because I wanted to support you, Amanda. And this is how you thank me, by humiliating me in front of everyone. You came here tonight, I said, maintaining eye contact, and were perfectly fine until the exact moment I announced my promotion. Just like you were fine at my wedding rehearsal, but suddenly needed a wheelchair for the ceremony. Just like you were scrolling through Instagram right after being too sick to attend my graduation. My words hung in the air like physical objects. For perhaps the first time in our adult lives, I had directly challenged the family narrative, the unspoken agreement that Bridget's needs always came first, that her pain was always the priority. May 3rd, 2 years ago, Sarah said suddenly. Amanda's 30th birthday dinner. Bridget had a severe episode requiring immediate departure. September 15th, 3 years ago, I added. My engagement party to Jake. Bridget fainted during his toast. June 22nd last year, Sarah continued. Amanda's article in Marketing Weekly was published. Family celebration canceled because Bridget had a migraine that required complete darkness and silence. December 12th, 4 years ago, I said. My promotion to team leader. Bridget had such severe joint pain she needed to be carried from the restaurant. We could have continued listing dates and events, building an irrefutable chronology of suspicious timing. But Bridget's face told us we had made our point. Her expression cycled rapidly through shock, anger, and finally something unexpected, a flash of shame, quickly masked by defensive indignation. You have been keeping track, making some kind of sick list of my pain episodes. What kind of person does that? Her voice cracked slightly. Mom, Dad, I want to leave. Now. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. For perhaps the first time, they seemed torn about immediately acquiescing to Bridget's demands. A seed of doubt had been planted, and I could see it taking root in their expressions. Bridget, my father said gently, maybe we should talk about this. If there is a pattern, as Amanda suggests. A pattern. Bridget's voice rose sharply. You are taking her side. After everything I have been through, the doctors, the medications, the daily struggle just to function. Nobody is taking sides, my mother interjected, though her usual certainty was notably absent. But we cannot ignore what Amanda has shown us. The restaurant manager appeared at the doorway again, his professional smile strained. Is everything all right here? We have received some concerns about raised voices from neighboring diners. Everything is fine, I assured him. Family discussion. We will keep it down. After he retreated, an uncomfortable silence descended over our table. The elegant room that had been chosen for celebration now felt like a courtroom with evidence presented and judgment pending. The untouched desserts and half-empty wine glasses stood as mute witnesses to the unraveling of our family's carefully maintained illusions. Heather, who had remained silent throughout the confrontation, finally spoke. As someone who only sees this family a few times a year, may I offer an outside perspective, without waiting for permission, she continued. From what I have observed both at this dinner and previous gatherings, there does seem to be a pattern of attention shifting. Whether intentional or not is beyond my knowledge, but the effect on Amanda has been consistent and harmful. Bridget turned to her betrayal etched across her features. You too? Is everyone against me now? This is not about being against you, I said, my voice softening slightly. This is about acknowledging a dynamic that has hurt me repeatedly. A dynamic that ended my engagement to Jake and contributed to my divorce from Daniel. A dynamic that has made me dread sharing my accomplishments with my own family. So this is all about you then, Bridget shot back, but her usual conviction was wavering. Your career, your relationships, your needs. What about my constant pain, my limited future, my daily struggles that none of you can possibly understand? Your pain is real, I acknowledged. But your timing is suspicious, and there is enough attention for both of us, Bridget. Family support does not have to be a zero-sum game, where only one daughter can receive care and recognition at a time. My words seemed to strike something deep within Bridget. For a brief moment, her carefully constructed defenses crumbled, and I glimpsed the scared, insecure person beneath. The sister, who had once been the star, the achiever, the favorite whose identity had been shattered by chronic illness, and who now clung desperately to the only form of power, she still possessed the ability to command attention through her suffering. The realization softened my anger, though not my resolve. I am not asking you to deny your condition or minimize your struggles. I am asking for space to celebrate my achievements without them being overshadowed. I am asking for our family to acknowledge that both of us have needs that matter. Tears welled in Bridget's eyes, but whether from genuine emotion or tactical manipulation, I could not tell. You have no idea what it is like, she whispered, to wake up every day knowing your body is betraying you, to watch your little sister thrive while your own life shrinks smaller and smaller. Before I could respond, she pushed back from the table and stood up. I need air. I cannot do this right now. She walked out of the private dining room with remarkable steadiness for someone who had been nearly collapsing minutes earlier, leaving the rest of us in stunned silence. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow felt more final than a slam would have. My parents looked shell-shocked, as if the foundations of their understanding had been shaken. In many ways they had. For years they had organized their lives around Bridget's needs, prioritizing her comfort and care above all else. The possibility that they had been manipulated, even partially, was clearly devastating. Should someone go after her? My mother asked uncertainly. Let her have some space, I suggested. This is a lot for everyone to process. My father reached across the table and took my hand, a gesture so unexpected that I nearly pulled away in surprise. Amanda, I do not know what to think about all this, but I do know one thing for certain. We are incredibly proud of your promotion. Senior marketing director at your age is extraordinary, and we should have made that the focus tonight. His words, simple as they were, unleashed emotions I had been containing for years. Tears sprang to my eyes and I squeezed his hand tightly. Thank you, Dad. That means more than you know. The remainder of the dinner proceeded in an atmosphere of awkward restraint. My parents stayed, which itself felt like a small victory, though conversation remained stilted and superficial. Sarah valiantly attempted to restore some celebratory spirit, raising her glass in a toast to my promotion, but the moment that should have been joyful was tinged with the uncomfortable awareness of Bridget's absence. Dessert arrived, elaborate chocolate creations that under different circumstances would have been photographed and savored. Instead, we picked at them distractedly, each lost in private thoughts about what had transpired. The manager comped the desserts and coffee, perhaps sensing that our special occasion had derailed significantly. As we prepared to leave, my father insisted on paying the considerable bill despite my protests. "This was supposed to be your celebration," he said firmly. "The least we can do is honor that intention." Outside the restaurant, the night air carried a hint of approaching autumn. My parents hugged me with unusual intensity, both murmuring additional congratulations about my promotion. There was something different in their embrace, a presence that had often been missing in our physical contact over the years. They were truly seeing me, perhaps for the first time in a very long time. "We should check on Bridget," my mother said, as they prepared to leave, the ingrained habit reasserting itself even now. But she added something new. "And then we would like to hear more about your new position, Amanda. Perhaps breakfast tomorrow." I nodded, too emotionally exhausted to fully process this small but significant shift. They departed in search of Bridget, who had presumably taken an Uber home or was waiting somewhere nearby. Sarah and Heather remained with me on the sidewalk, neither seeming eager to end the evening on such an unsettled note. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, linking her arm through mine. "I honestly do not know," I admitted. Part of me feels relieved, like I finally spoke a truth that has been suffocating me for years. Another part feels terrible, like I publicly humiliated my chronically ill sister. "You did what you needed to do," Heather reassured me. "That pattern was real, Amanda. We all saw it tonight." We parted ways with promises to talk tomorrow, each heading to our respective homes. The drive to my apartment was a blur, my mind replaying the evening's events on loop. The confrontation, my parents' reactions, Bridget's face when the video played, revealing what I had suspected for so long. When I arrived home, I discovered 7 missed calls from Bridget. My finger hovered over the callback button, uncertainty making me hesitate. Was I prepared for another confrontation? More accusations and tears? But avoiding the conversation would only prolong the inevitable. I pressed call, and she answered on the first ring. "Amanda." Her voice sounded different, stripped of its usual performance quality, raw, genuine, in a way I had not heard in years. "Are you okay?" I asked automatically, the concern for her well-being deeply ingrained despite everything. "No," she answered simply. "I am not okay. I have not been okay for a long time." The admission, so straightforward and devoid of dramatic flourish, caught me off guard. I sank onto my couch, prepared for whatever might come next. "That video," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "You predicted exactly what would happen. Because I am that predictable, that transparent in my behavior." I remained silent, letting her speak without interruption. "I do have fibromyalgia," she said defensively, then softened. "But you were right about the timing. Not all the time, but often enough. Often enough that I cannot pretend otherwise after seeing your video." The admission hung between us, momentous in its honesty. For years I had doubted my own perceptions, wondered if I was being selfish or unsympathetic. Having my observations validated, especially by Bridget herself, was both vindicating and heartbreaking. "Why?" I asked, finally, the single word encompassing a universe of hurt and confusion. I heard her inhale sharply, then exhale slowly, as if gathering courage. "Because it hurt too much to watch you succeed," she admitted, her voice cracking. "Before I got sick, I was the achiever, the star. Then suddenly I could barely get out of bed some days, while you were rising in your career, dating, living the life I should have had." The raw honesty of her explanation pierced through my defenses. For the first time, I glimpsed the true extent of her suffering, not just the physical pain, but the psychological anguish of watching her identity and future dissolve while her younger sister thrived. "The pain is real," she continued. "But I learned quickly that when it flared during your moments, I got extra attention, extra care. It became a pattern. Sometimes conscious, sometimes not. I do not think I fully realized what I was doing until I saw myself exposed so clearly in your video." We talked for over 2 hours that night, delving into childhood dynamics, unspoken competitions, and the complex interplay of chronic illness and family relationships. Bridget admitted that while her pain was genuine, she had learned to exaggerate symptoms when she felt threatened by my successes. I confessed my own resentments and jealousies, the years of feeling invisible in her shadow even after her diagnosis. "I do not expect you to forgive me right away," Bridget said as our conversation wound down. "What I did was wrong, regardless of my reasons. And I should have addressed this years ago instead of letting it build up," I acknowledged. "We have both contributed to this dysfunction." We agreed to meet for coffee the next day, a neutral setting for what would inevitably be another difficult conversation. As I prepared for bed that night, my emotions swung wildly between vindication, sympathy, anger, and relief. The confrontation had been painful but necessary, like lancing a wound that had festered for too long. Sleep eluded me as I replayed the evening's events. I wondered if one dramatic confrontation could really change patterns established over decades. I questioned whether Bridget's midnight confession was genuine or just another performance. Most of all, I pondered what our relationship might look like moving forward, if healing was even possible after so much damage. Morning arrived with no clear answers, but a strange sense of lightness. Whatever happened next, the truth had been spoken aloud, acknowledged by all involved. That alone felt like progress, a first step on a path I could not yet see clearly, but felt compelled to walk. The coffee shop we chose for our meeting was intentionally neutral territory, neither of our regular haunts. Bridget arrived first, securing a quiet corner table, away from the main traffic flow. When I entered, I spotted her immediately sitting straight-backed and visibly nervous, a stark contrast to her usual careful posture of discomfort. "I ordered you a latte," she said as I sat down. "Extra shot, no sugar. You still take it that way, right?" The fact that she remembered my coffee preference, a small detail in the grand scheme of things, touched me unexpectedly. "Yes, thank you." Awkward silence descended, as we both searched for words adequate to the moment. The familiar ease of childhood conversation had long since evaporated, replaced by careful navigation around sensitive topics and unspoken resentments. Now, with those resentments finally spoken aloud, we were in uncharted territory. "I did not sleep last night." Bridget began cupping her mug with both hands, as if drawing strength from its warmth. "I kept thinking about your video, how accurately you predicted what I would do. It was like seeing myself through someone else's eyes for the first time, and I did not like what I saw." I nodded, appreciating her directness. I have been noticing the pattern for years, but doubted myself. Part of me felt horrible for even suspecting you might be exaggerating or timing your symptoms. "The worst part," Bridget continued, "is that I was not fully conscious of what I was doing. Not at first, anyway. The pain is real, Amanda. The fibromyalgia diagnosis is legitimate. But over time, I noticed that pain flares during your important moments got me extra attention, extra sympathy." She paused, visibly struggling with her next words. "And if I am being completely honest, it felt like justice somehow, like the universe balancing things out. You were achieving everything I had lost the ability to pursue, so at least I could ensure I was not forgotten in the process." The admission hung between us, painful in its truth. I took a sip of my latte, buying time to process her words. "I never wanted to compete with you, Bridget. I just wanted my own moments to be acknowledged." "I know that now," she said softly. "But illness changes you. When your identity is stripped away, when your future narrows to managing pain day by day, you grab onto whatever power you still have. For me, that power was the ability to draw attention, to make others adjust their lives around my needs." For perhaps the first time, I truly understood the psychological impact of Bridget's condition. Beyond the physical pain she had suffered, the loss of her self-image as the successful, capable older sister. Watching me rise in my career while her own dreams withered must have been its own special torture. "I resented you," I admitted, matching her honesty with my own. "Not for being sick, but for how your illness became the center of our family universe. Nothing I achieved could ever compete with your needs." I felt invisible, unimportant. Bridget reached across the table and took my hand, an unexpected gesture that nearly brought tears to my eyes. You were never unimportant, Amanda. I was just terrified of becoming unimportant myself. Our conversation flowed more freely after that, each revelation making the next easier. Bridget described the complex mixture of pride and jealousy she felt watching my career advance. I shared how her constant health crises had contributed to the failure of both my engagement and my marriage. We acknowledged the role our parents had played, their well-intentioned but ultimately harmful pattern of dropping everything whenever Bridget called. They are coming here at 10, I mentioned, as we ordered second coffees. I thought we might benefit from having this conversation together as a family. Bridget tensed slightly, but nodded. You are right. They need to hear this too. When our parents arrived looking uncertain and visibly tired, we had already laid groundwork for the difficult conversation ahead. My father hugged me with unusual fierceness, whispering, "I am proud of you," in my ear before taking a seat. My mother embraced both of us, her eyes red-rimmed from what had clearly been a night of little sleep and much crying. The family discussion that followed was painful but necessary. Bridget acknowledged her pattern of using pain to seek attention, particularly during my important moments. I admitted to years of resentment and withdrawal, rather than direct communication. Our parents listened, occasionally defensive, but increasingly receptive as the conversation progressed. We enabled this dynamic, my father admitted eventually, the words clearly difficult for him. By always dropping everything for Bridget's episodes, we reinforced the behavior. We never meant to minimize your achievements, Amanda, my mother added, reaching for my hand across the table. We just worried so much about Bridget's health that everything else seemed secondary. But health includes mental and emotional well-being, I pointed out gently, for both of your daughters. By the end of our 2-hour conversation, we had agreed that family therapy would be beneficial. We found a therapist specializing in chronic illness and family dynamics, scheduling our first session for the following week. It felt like a tangible step forward, a commitment to healing, not just individually, but collectively. The months that followed were challenging but transformative. Weekly therapy sessions helped us identify and address unhealthy patterns. Bridget began working with a pain specialist who incorporated psychological approaches alongside physical treatments, acknowledging the complex interplay between emotional states and pain perception. She learned to distinguish between genuine flare-ups and anxiety responses, triggered by my successes developing healthier coping mechanisms for both. I worked on setting clearer boundaries while maintaining compassion, understanding that Bridget's condition was real, even if sometimes amplified by psychological factors. Our parents learned to balance their attention more equitably, recognizing that concern for one daughter did not necessitate neglecting the other. 6 months after that fateful dinner at Morton's, we gathered again to properly celebrate my promotion. This time, we chose a casual restaurant with outdoor seating, less formal but more comfortable for everyone. Bridget arrived early, helping arrange small decorations and a congratulatory banner. When I gave a brief speech, thanking everyone for their support, Bridget remained present and engaged. The slight tension in her expression revealed the effort it took, but her smile was genuine as she raised her glass in a toast to my success. Later that evening, as we were leaving the restaurant, she pulled me aside. "I still have bad days," she admitted quietly. "Days when it hurts to see you thriving while I struggle. But I am learning to sit with those feelings without acting on them. Your success does not diminish me, and my illness does not have to define me completely." Her words touched me deeply, recognizing both her ongoing struggle and her commitment to change. "And I am learning that acknowledging your pain does not mean sacrificing my needs," I replied. "There is room for both of us in this family." In the years since our confrontation, Bridget and I have rebuilt our relationship on more honest foundations. The competitive dynamic that defined our childhood and early adulthood has gradually transformed into something more supportive. We will never be the inseparable sisters of movie cliches, but we have found a way to coexist that honors both her struggles and my achievements. Perhaps the most unexpected development came 3 months ago, when Bridget suggested we start a support group for siblings of people with chronic conditions. Drawing on our own experiences, we created a space where people could discuss the complex emotions of loving someone with ongoing health challenges while maintaining their own identity and needs. The group now meets weekly at a community center, growing steadily as word spreads. Watching Bridget use her experience to help others has shown me a side of my sister I had forgotten existed, the empathetic, insightful person who had been obscured by years of pain and attention-seeking behavior. I have learned that confronting uncomfortable truths, though initially painful, creates space for genuine healing and growth. By exposing the pattern that had damaged our family for years, I forced us all to acknowledge reality, rather than continuing our carefully choreographed dance of denial. This does not mean everything is perfect now. Bridget still has legitimate pain flares, and I occasionally still question their timing. Our parents sometimes slip back into old patterns of unequal attention. Family therapy continues less frequently but still necessary for maintaining our healthier dynamic. But these imperfections no longer define us. We have found a way forward that allows each of us to be seen and valued, our needs acknowledged, without one consistently trumping the others. The truth spoken aloud and faced directly has set us all free in ways I never anticipated. Have you ever confronted a painful family pattern that everyone pretended not to notice? It takes tremendous courage to speak truth to those closest to you, but sometimes it is the only path to healing. Share your experiences in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember, addressing uncomfortable truths may hurt initially, but living with unacknowledged dysfunction hurts far more in the long run. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you strength if you are facing similar challenges in your own family.